Welcome to episode 33 of Godzilla Wins Saturday pick shows on this lovely Saturday morning, March 25th, 2023. I'm your co-host, Jack Fredericks, editor of GodzillaWins.com, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks. We are with our esteemed panel of perfect sports predictors, our fight guy, Patrick Assalaon, here to talk some UFC with us, resident college basketball expert, Sheriff David Clarke should be joining us soon, and senior contributor to Godzilla Wins, the degenerate we all know and love, Nate Perry. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
I'm fired up. All right. Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like you guys are locked in here. We have an absolutely packed show for you today. Some are saying it's maybe the best show ever. That's what I've been hearing. Best ever. The first for the first half hour, we have your UFC San Antonio coverage. This will be the second time UFC has visited San Antonio this month, including the main event fight for the UFC bantamweight bout between Marlon Vera and Corey Sandhagen. Then at 9 a.m., we're talking March Madness for an entire hour. All the number one teams are out. Gonzaga punches their ticket to the Elite Eight in the last seconds, and Princeton's Cinderella run ends. It is all here right now. All right, guys. Good to see you. Good to see everyone. We want to start, as always, with our 30 minutes of fight coverage in the UFC. So lately for our fight coverage, we've been doing 3 fights. What I decided I kind of wanted to do this week, just to mix it up and keep us kind of on our toes here, is we'll talk about Yana Santos and Holly Holm in a minute, and then Marlon Vera and Corey Sandhagen at right before 9 a.m. But I want to just start with some different perspectives on some undercard fights that you guys might be interested in or excited about for UFC San Antonio. So this is interesting to me because, number one, I have our fighter's perspective, Patrick Assalaon, retired fighter. And then I have our gambler's perspective, Nate Perry. So I'm interested to see how you guys kind of take this. Patrick, I want to start with you as a fighter. What's an undercard fight that you're really excited about watching at UFC San Antonio?
It was great when you said that was going to be on the docket this morning. Nate the Train Landwehr versus Lingo, Austin Lingo, and there's a reason that I dig this fight, because Landwehr he's got this professional wrestling persona and he lives the gimmick. He's not like a guy like Chael Sonnen who gets in the cage. He'll throw his smack around. He was the best at what he does, but then character's done when he's actually giving serious interviews explaining how the business is done and why he's getting people to hate him. Nate Landwehr, I think he actually believes in the gimmick and lives the gimmick 24/7, and he might be looking for a WWE run after his fighting career is over, and I'm not joking. In one of his last few fights, he actually had his opponent on the ground, crucifixed, beating the crap out of him, let him up in the last portion of the fight. Nobody does that. So he's playing to the crowd, which, say in Japan, that's a freaking awesome thing, because no matter how many times you get beat up or knocked out overseas, they will sign you and keep you fighting forever because you put butts in the seats. I don't know if that's a really great way to handle your UFC career, especially if you're looking to climb the ladder and get championship fights. Now, he's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He's really heavy-handed. He keeps coming forward. And I think to his detriment sometimes, he's just going to keep pushing the fight. His grappling, really, really good. He's a heck of a wrestler. Again, he loves, and he's a showman, and I think he loves to fight more than he likes to win. And I sort of get that kind of mind frame, because when I fought, it was a little bit different for me. I didn't care whether I won or lost. I wanted to destroy the person that I was fighting. I wanted to hurt them so badly that the next guy was terrified to fight me and the last guy would not come back. This is more so of, I think, a performance, and again, maybe detrimental to his career path. His opponent, Austin Lingo, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Really good striker, excellent movement, great hands, great elbows. He's got pretty damn good takedown defense. So to be the fight that I think it's going to be, I think Landwehr is going to engage him standing up, and he's going to play Austin Lingo's game. So that's my favorite fight. I'm looking for these two guys just to stand there and bang, and Landwehr just talk crap the entire time.
Nate, if we're thinking about Landwehr and Lingo as a showman type of fight, with, as Patrick says, Landwehr likes to fight maybe more than he likes to win. Are we thinking about some prop bets that maybe go to decision, or is that something not to think about in this fight?
I think that for this fight, I think in particular, it's sort of worth noting some of the things that we talk about a lot, right? Lingo is a late substitute. Again, we have a sort of situation where he's subbing in. And as near as I can tell, Lingo hasn't fought in almost 2 years. Is that correct? So
I think so, yeah.
So we're getting a guy who might have a little bit of ring rust, and is going against someone who seems highly motivated in Landwehr, right? Landwehr's looking to win, and he's looking to win with style. I think that he probably does win with style. I mean, if I were just betting this fight, I think you just lay the juice with Landwehr. It looks like it's about 225 minus 225 in most places. That seems reasonable based on what I'm seeing here. It looks like, I mean, if you want to bet Lingo, I think that you have to do it early. I think that, you have to think he probably needs to finish this fight in the first round and hope that he can land another big shot on Landwehr, and maybe that chin's gotten a little bit vulnerable after taking some damage lately. But I think that Landwehr's got to be the play if it's me just thinking about this.
Patrick, is ring rust real? Because we talk about it when we analyze MMA fights all the time, but neither of us have been in the ring. Is this something we really should be worried about?
Well, in the beginning of MMA, ring rust is a real thing. And the reason being was because there weren't too many promotions. There weren't a lot of fights all the time. And the pool of talent that you had to train with was relatively small. So yeah, ring rust used to be a thing. The way things are now, I don't see ring rust as much as a problem, because you have dozens and dozens of guys in your gym at any given time that you are training with. You're simulating your prep to a fight probably at least once before you actually start making your weight cuts and planning your fights. You're training. I mean, this is a very, very systematic, professionally run deal now. This is not just, okay, I'm sort of waiting between fights. I got nothing going on. Oh, I get a fight, and 2 weeks later you're fighting. If, for example, if you go to Wagner Roach's gym today, which he could not come in here because it was really short notice and he had a bunch of other things going on because the World Championships are down here as well. You walk into his gym today at 2:00 in the afternoon on a Saturday at his open mat, there's going to be 60 people there. And I'm not talking about white belts. These are browns, purples, and blacks, and they are all going to war against each other all the time. So the ring rust used to be a thing. Octagon shock, if you've never been in a big fight before or in front of a big crowd before, it's something that absolutely does have an effect. But I don't really know if it's going to affect Lingo that much. It never affected me. When I was fighting, there were several times that probably over the 30 some odd fights that I had as many canceled easily, and had stretches between fights where there was nothing going on.
Well, it sounds like you characterize yourself also as someone who likes to fight. So I can't imagine if you live to fight, ring rust is something that anyone should be worried about. So Nate, let's turn to you then. Do you have a fight on the undercard very quickly that you're interested in, just from a betting perspective, something you see some value in?
I think that there's one that might just be kind of fun to watch. I think that, this Chidi Albert Duraev looks real to me. And it looks like fun. Chidi and Joe Kwani, just because it looks like UFC sort of did this on purpose. They wanted a really exciting fight to sort of set up the main card, and it looks like they kind of did that. It's two totally contrasting styles. Chidi's, looking to strike and looking to hit people. And Durev's really just looking to grapple is kind of what it looks like on paper. So I think that this could be a fun sort of stylistic matchup. I like Chitty to get the win here. He's a pretty short favorite right now, -155 or so. But that's sort of the biggest one that I saw that sort of just caught my eye just from sort of an excitement standpoint. I don't know if Patrick cares to speak on it at all.
I love those fights that are thrown together like that, but I can give you my experience, Nate, is when they put a fight together to actually generate excitement, it generally does nothing.
Never works.
That's my that's what I've seen. If you remember when we were talking about last week's fight with the Gaethje fight, that if Gaethje went to the ground and remembered his wrestling, he could probably win this. Well, what happened? These guys stood there and threw bombs the entire time. and Gaethje ended up winning and did get his takedown at the end of the third round. So I'm with you. I would pick the same one. I think that'll be an exciting fight too. But this is what you get when you get guys who are primarily strikers versus primarily wrestlers. They both know what each other are going to do, and I think the game plan after the first round gets thrown out the window.
So let's move now to Holly Holm versus Yana Santos for the, I believe, welterweight or bantamweight bout. This is not a championship bout, but this is, Patrick mentioned that I kind of threw this 30 minutes of fight coverage at you guys a little late. And one of the reasons is because I saw Holly Holm on the co-main event and got kind of excited. Also, we just love doing this UFC. So for the foreseeable future, I think we'll just do the 8:30 to 9. I mean, it's just a lot of fun, but even so, I mean, Holly Holm is 41 years old, going up against Yana Santos here in a co-main event, really interesting bout. Maybe this is another way, Patrick, to just generate excitement. Maybe Holm is a little past her prime, but I don't know. She's always in incredible shape. She's an incredibly gifted and entertaining fighter. So, Patrick, what do you see in the Holm versus Santos fight? Well,
she's 41 years old, but let's just go into this a little bit. She is a big name. Age doesn't necessarily hinder you. Injuries hinder you. That's the big problem. I'm 53 years old. I roll 3 days a week, and I go after people who are in their 20s and 30s. It doesn't even bother me. So that's one thing. She just signed a 6-fight deal with the UFC. So I think she's not planning on going anywhere anytime soon. I think this is an exciting fight. I think they're both going to stand up. I think they're both going to throw bombs. I don't see a whole lot of grappling going on here. Holly Holm is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, excuse me. She has tons of experience. So what does this mean? You can actually control the fight when you have tons of experience. You're extremely calm. You're not jumping around like crazy. So experience has an awful lot of weight. You can control the fight. I see her as being able to control the fight. I remember against Ronda Rousey, which is still one of my absolute favorite fights of all time, watching Ronda Rousey get her head knocked off was phenomenal for me. And Holly Holm just paced that fight. She controlled that stand-up fight, and she knocked her out as soon as the opportunity came. She timed it perfectly. She may have lost this step. Maybe she has, maybe she hasn't. It all depends how you're feeling in that fight. People don't understand everything that goes into something leading up to a fight. What injuries does she have? They don't really know this, but I would have to take Holly Holm in this fight.
Nate, what do you see here?
I don't see a lot of value in anything, to be quite honest with you, from a betting perspective. Holly Holm's, a huge favorite. It looks like she's deserving. There's part of me that thinks that like Santos might just be worth just a flyer at like 2-1, just because it feels like there's probably a better than 1 in 3 chance that she can, sneak something in against Holly Holm, who is getting older. I mean, she is 41 years old, and if Santos can land a hard shot on her, maybe put her down, because Santos's striking is no joke. I've been reading a lot about her sort of like switching camps recently and sort of integrating some different type of striking in there, more elbows and knees. And it seems like something that could give Holm problems if she tries to clinch with her. So there's part of me that just thinks like probably pass on betting it. If I had to bet it, maybe throw a few bucks on Santos and just see if she can't sneak something out. I just don't see any value on anything else. I can't really justify betting Holm at that price. If you bet the over 2.5 rounds, it's like minus 285. So that's out. I don't know. I think maybe, see if Santos can sneak one in, but from a betting perspective, I don't know if I'm terribly interested. I think this is more just like a fun fight to watch than anything else.
And Jack, if I may, Jack, gleaned over Santos a little bit. She just had a baby not too long ago. And yes, I have no idea what it's like to have a child. I'm a man. I cannot give birth. I have no idea. All I can tell you is it's probably going to have some effect on her body.
That's why you got banned from Twitter.
Exactly. Probably exactly the reason why, amongst other things. That's a huge question mark. How much has she changed? It may be a change for the better, because now she's a ferocious mama bear looking to take somebody's head off, for another reason to fight. You just don't know. That's a huge variable too.
It is. And one of the things that we've been seeing in this UFC coverage of this fight is how will this affect her? And the fact that she's come back so quickly. She had a baby just about a year ago and has gotten her body in the place where she feels like she can win this fight. Very interesting stuff here in the Santos Holm fight. I guess not a lot of betting advantage. 2-1. Maybe you take a flyer on Santos, I guess. If it's 4-1 in these co-main events, for me, if anything, any of these guys are 4, 5, 6-1, I'm just taking them just on principle, because it's too much in a UFC main event, which they're always unpredictable. You just never know what's going to happen. Someone lands a head kick and you win at a 4-1 odd. But yeah, very interesting here in the Holm versus Santos fight. Okay, we've got about 12 minutes, and I want to spend some time talking about Marlon Vera versus Corey Sandhagen. This is an interesting fight. It's not a championship bout, but one expects that the winner of this fight should be given a title shot at some point. Patrick, tell us what you see here in the Vera versus Sandhagen main event at UFC San Antonio.
Well, generally these fight night promotions, Jack, are to build people up for their up and comers and to give them exposure. It's sort of like in pro wrestling, where you've got the world champion up here and then the United States champion right below them. The titles really don't mean anything, but when you win the US title, it usually means you're the next guy in line to get a run at the world title. So they use these fight nights to build interest in the fighters. Okay. What am I looking at here? I got Sandhagen and I got Vera. Sandhagen is a great striker, strikes from all kinds of different places. He strikes from out of nowhere. He throws these funky side kicks, hooking heel kicks, all kinds of crazy stuff. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, Vera's a black belt, and a lot of people put a lot of weight on this. Being a brown belt is not the same thing as it used to be, because you are rolling with black belts every single day, and you've got to get tapped out and beat up an awful lot just to get to brown belt. Okay, you get beat up and tapped out even more to get to black belt. So both of these guys have a lot of experience, and depending on the team that you're with, your experience level could be exactly the same as the other person. So when you got brown belts, you got black belt, especially when you're striking on the ground, I'm going to put that at sort of a wash. Sandhagen's wrestling is not great. He's primarily more of a stand-up fighter. And a lot of people are going to say, well, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling are two entirely different things. They are two different worlds. And that's a transition game. Again, he can hit from anywhere. I love that, not having a real idea of where the strike is coming from. He's got that surprise factor on his side. Vera, on the other hand, will stand straight in front of you and has not changed in like 20 fights. So you know what you're getting. And the more you fight that way, the more you stay ingrained in that style. So if Vera is going to stand straight in front of Sandhagen, as tough as Vera is, it may not be a great night for him, because you've got to be able to hit someone. Okay, you can hit someone. Well, when they throw strikes back and you're not there, that takes as much energy as taking the strike that was just thrown at you. So Sandhagen moves around a great deal. Vera's taken a lot of damage. He's got a lot more experience. I may have to go with Sandhagen on this one, even though the experience factor goes with Vera, and he's been in many tougher fights.
Patrick, can you say a little bit more about the brown versus black belt idea? I guess I'm asking just when this took place, because I guess it used to be, right, a brown and black was miles apart. Has the sport just evolved to the point where they're really so similar in experience, or is it just from a fighter's perspective, you look at it and you say, look, brown and black, it's pretty much been the same because you're taking all these hits?
Well, what happened is when fighting began, everybody had their different camp. One guy was kickboxing, one guy was submission, one guy was Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so on and so forth. So there were 7 to 8 parts to an actual real MMA fight, 7 to 8 skills that you had to master. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, generally you're promoted on time and your ability to put these techniques together in a very smooth fashion. And then when fighting really became huge, MMA became huge, they stopped doing a lot more gi stuff and started doing a lot more no gi stuff, which means they weren't using the uniform anymore. So the grips changed. A lot of things changed. About 80% of what they could do on the ground disappeared because you didn't have something to grab anymore. So, for example, and I'll go back to Wagner. Wagner is an elite black belt. So when people say, okay, this guy's a black belt and this guy's a black belt, they may be this far apart, okay? Just because of the training they've done, how many other disciplines they're in, how they've molded it to things. But when you're talking about brown and black, brown comes first before black. You know the same techniques a black belt knows. You know, you've got everything that guy has. The other guy may have more experience, or maybe you just haven't been at brown belt long enough for them to promote you because they don't see something in you yet or something that you're not doing. Once they see it, they'll promote you. So it's sort of an ambiguous thing, but now it's a much, much bigger deal where guys are just walking onto mats. Nobody's got a belt on and they're just going. And I got to tell you something, a lot of that psychological effect is taken out of it too, because when you see people with black belts, when you're not a black belt, oh boy, yeah, that guy's really, really good. He may not be. He may just have put his time in, got his black belt as far as a fight is concerned. He's absolutely skilled, very, very dangerous, but he may not have everything else that somebody else has. So it's a little murky, it's a little ambiguous.
Are you a black belt?
I've actually never, well, that's a lie. I've worn a gi one time in my life when I was in Edinburgh, Scotland on a world tour with Eric Paulson teaching seminars. And I ran my way through the entire British national judo team by leg locking all of them. So that's the only time in my life I've ever worn a gi, but understand something. That's a different discipline. Brazilian jiu-jitsu is a set of moves for every level, and you keep moving up.
Sure, yeah.
Submission, you just got thrown into the freaking deep end and we're getting choked out, knocked out, and leg locked every freaking day. And okay, you can fight now because you can stop me from choking you senseless today. Okay, now we'll go to another technique.
So I got one more question for you, then we'll go to Nate here. I think we're talking about elite striking as being something that could be a possible advantage here in this fight. I'm just asking, Patrick, your experience, and you can tell a little story if you want. Has there been a time you've been in the ring, in the octagon, and you're just getting pummeled and you're thinking, uh-oh?
I've never really been pummeled. I've been knocked out. So anytime that I've ever felt that sort of, okay, wow, there's been several times where I've been hit and I said, okay, now this is going to be fun. We're in a fight now. Other times I've never felt being in trouble. I just got knocked out. So have I seen people? Have I seen people have that look across their face? Like, wow, I just got hit and this is not going to be. Yes, I've seen that.
What happens, Patrick, when you get knocked out and you're knocked out and then you come to that moment you come to? Just describe that for us.
It's just like you woke up from deep sleep. You have no idea what even happened. You remember last week when Wagner was talking about that switch just gets turned off? That's what happens.
Yes.
Your switch gets turned off. You are like you're in deep REM sleep, like when you get choked out the first time and people are literally snoring on the floor. They're out. You let go, you wake them up and they're, what happened? They're like in dream, they were like in REM sleep.
So it's like you're in REM sleep and then you come to and you got a guy standing over you and fans are screaming, but then and it's at that point that you realize, okay, I just got knocked out.
Well, generally you're told because you still don't know what happened.
You just say you're knocked out, fight's over.
You're, what's wrong? I'm fine. No, you were out cold.
Oh my goodness.
And I've been knocked out all over the world. So I've,
an incredible
like most
distinction.
people, I'm not going to tell you that I'm 300-0. You
Well,
can
most-
find my
most
fights
fi-
where I've been knocked senseless.
Most fighters that you see on TV, they look much older than they are because the beatings they've taken. You just told me you were 53. Yeah, we knew each other a long time. I even put it on Getter. I had no idea you were 53. I thought you were like 40, 39, 41. So for all those fights you've been in, I mean, damn, you look pretty good at 53.
I picked the right parents, John. I got great genetics and really I got out of the way of stuff. I was taught a long time ago, the best way to take a punch or a kick to the face is to get out of the way. So if you don't get hit too much, you generally keep your facial structure the way it's been since you were born. It's when you decide to step in front of people and throw bombs because you're a tough guy, that's generally when the brain damage and the freaking facial reconstruction starts to come into play.
I thought you were going to give all the credit of your good looks and fine living to Teresa. That's kind of what I was aiming for here.
She's trying, but I'm just so far beyond any help at this point that she's really trying.
Happy wife, happy life, dude. Sheriff Clarke knows that too.
Nate, lay some odds on me, brother. What do you think?
So Sandhagen's actually a small favorite here. From a betting perspective, I kind of like Vera just because it's a little bit of a longer fight. And it seems like the common sort of critique for Vera is that he typically takes a lot of damage pretty early in fights, sort of feeling people out. It starts off pretty slow, sort of preserves his cardio, and then really tries to come on as the fight goes on. So just from a fight sort of flow perspective, I sort of like the idea of Vera being there later on in the fight and sort of just wearing Sandhagen down. So by the time they get to the, end of the third, fourth, fifth round, it sort of just turns into the Vera show. And I think that there are paths to victory there for him if he sort of wears out Sandhagen. So from that perspective, I kind of like Vera as a small underdog. He's like plus 140-ish, depending on where you're looking. So that's sort of how I was viewing the fight. But I mean, I think that there's, I think that it's fair to have some of those concerns that you are. I'm looking at some of these numbers, like, when he fought Rob Font, he 199 head strikes from Font, but then like at the end of the fight, he didn't really look that damaged. So it just sort of plays weird. Like he eats so many punches. I'm just like looking at it, and it's like for every 4 he throws, he gets hit with 5 per minute. So it's like so imbalanced, but yet he seems to make that style work for him, just because he seems to not be taking huge shots when he does get hit. And when he does stand and throw, he tends to land more than his opponents, or land more impactful ones, I guess, than his opponents. So I sort of like that in a longer fight. Just from a betting perspective, I kind of like Vera just to kind of get in there and just wear him out.
Well, during the fight, you're not, being too tough can be a bad thing sometimes. And I can tell you one thing, that a lot of people do say that he starts slow. If he gets tagged and does not get knocked out and he realizes he's in a fight immediately, that slow start is going to change very quickly because he's going to realize what he can and cannot take and how long he can do that if he gets really stuck and doesn't get dropped.
Yeah.
Okay, so incredible analysis here from our fight guy, Patrick Assalaon and Nate Perry. Now we are going to switch over to our final hour where we're going to talk March Madness. We got the Elite Eight, all these 8 teams here. Sheriff David Clarke in the Zoom with us. We're very excited to talk some basketball after that hour or 30 minutes of UFC, which we're going to be doing now, I think, for the foreseeable future, because it's just so much fun to talk fights. Dad, before we get there, why don't you tell us a little bit about DraftKings, and then you can tell us what's on your mind. So it seems like you've been itching to talk here, so take it away for about 6 minutes.
No, look, I've been enjoying Patrick. This is a fun segment, this 8:30 to 9. I've learned so much, and I love Patrick's stories and love Lander's stories when he gets on. It's just a lot of fun, and I've really learned a lot. So I look forward to it. You guys are doing a good job. I just want to give a shout out, guys, to my son Jack here and Nate. Jack is the editor and publisher, or the editor of this website. You go to GodzillaWins.com, GodzillaWins.com. He's basically running the entire operation. He's doing a great job. Nate, want to thank you also. I mean, our traffic is up dramatically. It's shocking how much traffic we've had in the past couple of weeks with our March Madness coverage and the writers we have that Jack's assembled. I mean, this thing is a really great site. So Jack, I just got to tell you this before we get into it. So last night, Ann comes home and she was on the plane flying back from her conference, and she was reading all the Godzilla Wins stuff. So she was on the site on the plane because she got internet, and she told me, hey, that was the first time I really read all that stuff. You know, I read, once in a while I'll read Nate or you, but I read it all. She said, boy, he's assembled a great team of writers. This is like the best site out there for what you're doing. So you get a big shout out from her. You're doing an outstanding job, and our traffic is way up. Everybody just go to GodzillaWins.com, GodzillaWins.com. You can enter a $5,000 sweepstakes. Not going to cost you anything. That'll be that draw will be on April the 7th, I think the end of April. So we're going to give away $5,000, but that'll put you on an email list that we send out every so often. Doesn't cost you anything, but that is the Godzilla Wins site is just fantastic. So check it out. Go to GodzillaWins.com and bookmark it and go there every day, because there's fresh content constantly that Jack is putting up. So good job, Jack. And I want to thank you for that. Let's talk about DraftKings. The biggest tournament in college basketball is right here. We're getting to the Elite Eight today, and then a Final Four. The top teams are gearing up, as you can see, for an epic finish. But look, there's still plenty of time to join the college hoops action. What you got to do is go to DraftKings Sportsbook, download their free sportsbook app. New customers can make a $5 pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if their team wins instantly. Now, DraftKings will be featuring parlays and odds boosts for the rest of the tournament, so be sure to check the app every day to see what they have in store. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and sign up with promo code Godzilla. That's promo code Godzilla. New customers, again, bet $5 on any pregame money line and get $150 in bonus bets if their team wins. That's promo code Godzilla only on DraftKings Sportsbook. And if you want the winner, just go to GodzillaWins.com. There's a bunch of picks there. You pick one. Must be 21 or older. Virginia only. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/basketball terms. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call the Virginia Problem Gambling Helpline, 888-532-3500. So, Jack, great job.
Thank you. So on the first segment here, we usually start, Dad, with a Godzilla rant. Do you have something you want to talk about?
Oh, I got a rant going, baby. I got a rant going.
Right.
I never thought you'd call on me. I've been so patient, but that's my middle name, Patience. I've been so patient. Look, this is the greatest March Madness tournament ever. This is the best one. I'm 65. I've been following these for I don't know how long, but this is the most exciting one. I know the Blue Bloods are out. The number one seeds are out. The games have been competitive. I've been staying up late. The Gonzaga game, I'm supposed to be in bed at 8. I stayed up till midnight. Every time I said, one more possession, I'll go to bed. I couldn't stop. And you go on from there. But I tell you the other thing, which is so great about this tournament for me, and I think so many others, especially in the line of work I'm in. This is why I love this tournament. It's pure. It's pure basketball. It's pure fun. It's pure competition. It's pure love, right? I mean, there's no politics here. Zero politics. It doesn't even enter into anything. There's no woke. There's no race. There's no transgender stuff. There's no debates. There's nothing. It is just pure, competitive, young men basketball entertainment. And I think for those watching it, it's like, wow, you almost have to say to yourself, wow, finally I get something where I can totally escape. I don't have to deal with any of this nonsense. And I tell you what, one of the most exciting things for me was watching Miami win yesterday, and they crushed their opponent, right? They were a 7.5-point underdog. I bet the Cougars to win the thing, so I'm out. They crushed Houston. Their 73-year-old coach, Jim Larranaga, has been there for 13 years at Miami. And after the game, he's on the screen, he's kissing his players. They go into the locker room, and he's like 73-year-old, and he's dancing with them and laughing and dancing. And, he's doing a dance thing that you can't get better than this. And I just want to, and it's almost like you're waiting for, somebody to come and screw it up and start making political statements about something going on. And it's been devoid of that. And I think this country is just looking for something to get out of all the nonsense that goes on. And this NCAA March Madness tournament, to me, has done that. And I just can't get enough of it. Like, I can't wait until the games today. I can't wait till Final Four next week. Has been so exciting. So best March Madness ever. Let's keep it clean.
Okay, so John, my dad, says best March Madness ever. This is an interesting take because we've been having a lot of discussions just privately about the popularity of some of these teams. The unpredictability of the tournament is always one of the reasons that people like it. But usually within that unpredictability, you get teams like Kansas or Duke, UNC, which didn't even make the tournament this year. You usually get a couple blue bloods, Kentucky, whatever you want to say. This year, especially after last night, losing out all our number 1 seeds are gone. We're left with Florida Atlantic, Creighton,
San
UConn,
Diego
which
State.
is SDSU. A lot of teams that maybe not everybody totally understands or knows about. So Sheriff Clarke, I want to ask you a question here. Is the tournament better or worse without the blue bloods?
Well, after John's rant, I got to figure out where to start here, for heaven's sakes. Obviously, John overnight caught a case of recency bias. He mentions this is the best NCAA tournament ever. Better than what, I guess. And I hate to curb your enthusiasm, John, but there have been some outstanding games. There have been some exciting games throughout this tournament. But when you have as many games as they have, you're going to get one or two that are riveted. When you start watching it, you get into it, and when you really don't have a dog in the fight, and you just want to see some good basketball. There have been a few games like that, but overall, and there've been several articles written about this on some sports sites about, if you don't have some blue bloods in there, does it hurt the tournament? And I think it does. And here's why I say that. I didn't go to Duke, but I've been a Duke fan for a very long time. And what attracted me to being a Duke fan was Coach K. Okay, and the way he coaches, his story. I read his book last year. It's an excellent read. on his career, and then you'll see what kind of man he is, a man of character, a man of faith. And that's what drew me to the Duke Blue Devils. And of course, they had some outstanding teams. Some of the players going through their history, were fun to watch. But the articles that I read this week that were written about the fact that there aren't any blue bloods in it doesn't hurt the tournament. And that's why I mentioned, I said, I didn't attend Duke, but here's where I can use myself as an example. Obviously, these teams have followers from alumni, the towns that they're in, will draw eyeballs to the set. But I think where the blue bloods bring more interest is the general fan. And that's why I use myself as an example, wants to watch and wants to follow. When you get some of these schools, like the ones that are in it now, the ones that are remaining, and this is not to be hypercritical about these schools. They're great institutions. Most of these schools are great academic institutions. There's no tradition. There's no history, for heaven's sakes. And I think that's where the general fan comes in that starts to watch, and that's gone now. Sure, anybody who lives in some of these areas, Creighton, San Diego State, Kansas State, they'll watch it. But there's no fan that transcends.
They all got in and got beat. I mean, I don't know what your point is here, Shep. Let me do that.
The question:
they got in and got beat. They got bounced.
John, the question isn't did they win fair and square? Of course they did. It's like the question is, does it hurt that there aren't teams whose fans transcend the institution?
Who is it hurting? Is it hurting the average fan? I mean, I'm sorry, Duke got beat.
No. Well, no, here's who it's hurting.
Duke fans.
CBS.
Duke fans.
CBS could care less who wins this damn tournament. They have to hope that the advertisers, CBS pays $1 billion a year for the rights to televise the damn tournament. They only care about the advertisers.
So I'm now supposed to cry that CBS is going to lose money because advertisers don't advertise because the ratings are down because there's no Duke and North Carolina, and I'm supposed to cry over that. I spend 10 hours a day selling. Hey, get on the phone and sell an ad. You got a phone that dials out. I don't care about.
Nobody is going to shed any tears over this. But the question, let's stick with the question. Does it hurt the tournament? Should people cry? Should people feel sorry for CBS? All we have to do, John, and it'll come out, is watch the ratings. Let's take a look at the ratings after this weekend, and then we'll take a look at the ratings after the Final Four. And I will bet you a cup of coffee right now that the ratings will be down because you don't have teams whose interest transcends the institution. Teams like Kentucky, UCLA, for heaven's sakes, and those are schools that I don't really care for, but let's face it, they have tradition when it comes to basketball. The Miami Hurricanes are a football school. The San Diego State Aztecs, I don't know what they are. The Creighton Blue Jays, I don't know what they are in terms of sports tradition. That's why I like those teams. You can see the hat on I have today. I'm pulling for the Texas Longhorns now. I went from starting this tournament, John, where I was pulling for teams, and after the first weekend, I turned into someone who was pulling against teams, for heaven's sake, because I didn't want to see them in the tournament anymore.
Well, listen, it's been when you get these kind of upsets and you get these Cinderella teams in there, and you just watch the game like that San Diego State game, right? I'm an offensive coach, right? Jack played for me. I never met a defense I spent 5 minutes on, right? It was all about me scoring. And so, but I saw that San Diego State defense and how they slowed that game down. And I got to tell you, I was in awe of that coach and the way he slowed that thing down to a snail's pace. And even said before the game, Coach Dutcher of San Diego State said, "You know what? We can beat any team here. I'm not afraid of Alabama. I'm not an underdog. All we have to do is play half court basketball. We're gonna beat them." They played half court basketball. They beat a smothering defense. They have no offense. You know, to me as a basketball fan, I mean, watching that, and look, I bet Xavier last night because I think they got one of the best offenses in the NCAA, and Texas smothered them. They had a better game plan. That interim head coach they have, I can't even think of his name. That guy should get hired today because if Sean Miller is a great coach, that's why I bet Xavier last night plus 4.5. They were never in the game. He got outcoached by this new guy in Texas. He got blown out. Their game plan, they smothered them. So they never got the offense going. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get the whole Duke is out, NC State is out, or whatever these blue bloods are, Michigan or something. But to me, this has been just for if you want basketball and you want just to understand the game with these young men and their coaches, I think the plot here has been phenomenal. And look, you know, all our brackets got busted, but I think the ratings are. I think you're going to be shocked with the ratings. I think people are fired up about it.
I don't know. This is the first time, and I heard this the other day. This is the first time in NCAA history no number one made the Elite Eight. And again,
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
really, when we talk about interest, does it hurt the tournament? We're talking from an interest, not do you like basketball? Have these games been great? Games been exciting? Yes, but in the end, and that's why I bring in CBS and the advertisers, they only care that people are watching. And when the fan who's watching doesn't transcend, well, I went there, I'm an alumni, I live in that town, I knew somebody who went there. The casual fan doesn't care about these schools, man. That's not my fault. I think some of these are some great programs. You know, Gonzaga, for heaven's sakes. And Gonzaga, you know, they kicked off that glass Cinderella label a long time ago. They're not always
They're good. They're good.
favorites. They've grown the institution. I mean, you know, the basketball program, they earned the distinction that they have today. They earned that always get a top seeding. It didn't start that way for them. So, you know, good for some of these schools that, and not, when I say smaller, I'm not talking about size and number of students. I'm talking about in terms of tradition. It's just not there. And the casual fan wants to see tradition. It's like the casual fan likes seeing Michael Jordan and they didn't watch the NBA. The casual fan likes watching Tiger Woods, and they don't even watch golf. They don't even play golf, but they watch it. That's what the advertisers care about. That's where the ratings come from. If I'm wrong on this, I'm wrong. You know, that the ratings will be, you know, okay, but I bet they'll be down.
Sour grapes.
Couple points. Number one, the FDU FAU game was one of the highest rated basketball games of March Madness as of late, but those ratings are always hard to compare because every year sports just get more popular, so it's hard to know, but that was a highly rated game, so there's one thing. Number two, Sheriff Clarke, I'm happy that you brought up your Texas hat because I was going to do that if you weren't. If Texas loses, I'm hoping you buy a Gonzaga hat, and just whatever the highest seed is the next week, I just want you to have whoever is the highest seed, the favorite, I just want you to put their hat on so that so you could keep cheering for the
full disclosure. But full disclosure here on the Texas hat. I didn't go out and buy this just last night. I'm a Texas Longhorn football fan, not basketball fan. Football. I like Texas football. Again, tradition, but that's why I have the Texas Longhorn hat. And I have a Texas Longhorn sweatshirt because of the football program.
So
they're a lot of fun to watch in basketball as well. So we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to give you all our Elite Eight picks pretty soon. I know my father seems pretty locked in today, but if he wants to dominate the conversation, he can do that at 6 a.m. on Monday. We've got 5 people on the show here, so settle down, Dad. Because if you want to talk college basketball with nobody, you can do it at home in the bathroom, or you can do it at 6 a.m. on Monday morning when you go live on the John Fredericks Radio Network. So before we get to our Elite Eight picks, let's let Patrick tell us a little bit about TargetTrading.co, one of our very important sponsors here that makes everything we do at Godzilla Wins possible. Patrick, I think your mic may have cut out, or is that just me?
No, he's muted.
Oh,
Sorry about that. I muted myself because I didn't want to get in the way of everyone else when they were talking.
No, I'm telling you, I almost logged out. So
we had a rough week last week, Jack. We were 83 wins, 24 losses, and 4 break evens. So that's rough for me. Okay. Fed going crazy, doing all kinds of weird stuff. But essentially, we did very well last week. And there's this running update that I give your father, one of our students who was a caller, came as a caller from the show. Kathy, after trading live for 1 week, she's been with us for 5 months. She's been live for a week. She's up $2,000, paid herself $2,000 cash this week. She's thrilled to death. I told her that she's probably going to be going on your dad's show, and she almost lost her mind. So that's generally what we've got. I've got dozens of them that start out through the show, never ever traded before a day in their lives. Times could vary anywhere 5, 6, 7 months. They get live. Thrilled to death that they did it. Targettrading.co, 888-203-3731. We'll teach you how to trade, make you your own boss. The man won't tell you what to do with your life anymore. How about that?
Love
Go to
it.
targettrading.co, guys. Targettrading.co. That's where you go. We got so many students in there that are being successful. Targettrading.co. Put in promo code Godzilla. You get 15% off your tuition. Can't beat that. And Patrick, thank you for all you do for all of our students, because all I get is great feedback. Thank you for that.
absolutely, and we're happy for Kathy. He can go on Dad's show, and she can interrupt. He can interrupt her to talk about the San Diego State Aztecs defense, which we're going to talk about next here. So here we go. This is our Elite Eight South region here. We've got 2 teams that Sheriff Clarke just. I mean, I feel so bad for him because this is not his game right here. San Diego State versus Creighton. He hates the Big East, and he's not exactly the biggest San Diego State fan with his comments. I don't even know what's going on down there. I don't know what their tradition is. They got no tradition. You go to GodzillaWins.com, you can find a lot of San Diego State fans. You can find Nate Perry, who's been picking them out there out west. Also, Matthew Wadley had their money line pick last night, so he's pumped about that as well. He went to San Diego State, one of our writers at GodzillaWins.com. So huge game here. Nate, can you please give us the odds and break down this game a little bit? Then we'll do a little round robin. We got plenty of time here. Dad can get in everything he needs to talk about, and we can go from there.
So we'll start with San Diego State Creighton then in the South. Yeah. I mean, so Creighton opened at -1. They're bet up to -1.5. If that's not, a huge significant difference. The total's pretty low for a Creighton game at over under 133. So expecting, San Diego State to kind of do what they've been doing, which is just dominating the pace. We were texting about it yesterday against Alabama, and it wasn't surprising to me. I wrote it up in the sort of preview that I wrote for that game. Furman played a really up-tempo game. Charleston plays really up-tempo. Alabama plays really up-tempo. And the one thing that San Diego State has been able to do is get all of those teams to slow down. They just play such good defense, and they just don't give them any looks in transition. And it was really hard for Alabama to score. And Alabama's an elite offense. So from just like an opening perspective, I mean, it's sort of interesting because San Diego State has played such a unique style that's given so many teams trouble. That being said, Creighton is an elite offense. They should have the size to match up, much like Alabama did, even though it didn't really matter. But Creighton, I think, is a little bit more organized in the half court than Alabama was. So I still sort of like Creighton here, but I'm also just a huge Creighton homer, right? I mean, let's not forget that I have that 50-1 ticket on Creighton to win this whole thing. So just from a betting perspective, I still think Creighton probably, I want Creighton to get through. But this is definitely a tough matchup given how San Diego State has played.
Yeah, one of the things about Nate is he's very fickle in terms of his allegiance because it's all based on who's going to make him money. And right now, Creighton has the best shot of making Nate money with that 50-1 ticket. So
much.
He bets against the Cowboys, and he's a Cowboys fan. I really can't get over that.
Oh, I was
And
like
he-
the world's biggest Jaguars fan last season. Yeah, it was just all money.
Bad juju.
Yeah.
It's just bad. It's just bad. So bad karma. It's bad. Stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. So
How's
Nate
that
likes
good karma
Creighton.
working out with your fanhood?
Yeah.
I bet,
Yeah.
I bet the Titans. I bet the Titans every game.
And
I bet
lose
the
money
Astros-
every
I
season.
bet
And
the
you
Astros
lose money
every
all
game.
the
So
time.
what?
Yeah.
I got to bet him because of my team. Otherwise, I'd be jinxing him.
Otherwise, you'd be a mercenary like me.
Yeah.
No,
Absolutely. So,
Nothing wrong with that.
okay.
Thank you, Patrick.
That's right. Nate likes Creighton. Their pace is incredible. They got that guy in the middle who can really move. He's like 7'1", and he plays to me like an NBA center. I mean, he can stretch the floor. He can really move. He stays out of foul trouble, which means that you can penetrate the paint and get points in the paint. You saw Princeton when they were leading the game. A lot of the points were in the paint there, and then they kind of fell apart at the second half. But Creighton can dominate the pace of the game as well. So these are two teams that want to play different style of basketball. Sheriff Clarke, what do you think about this game? Is this something? Should we be respecting SDSU, or is Creighton our team here?
Wow, man, I'll tell you, you're making it tough on me because, I have no interest in the game. Okay.
That's why
But
I
suppose
threw it to you.
If you hold a gun to my head, the only thing I know about San Diego State, John, you mentioned earlier that there's no politics involved in this college tournament. The only thing I know about San Diego State is the libs, the woke mob, approached the university to change their mascot name. All right, the Aztecs. They said it was disparaging to Native Americans. So after giving it some thought, I'll give them half credit. The university said, we're keeping the name Aztec. We'll just change the mascot. They had a caricature of a Inca warrior or something like that. But they did say they'd changed the mascot. I don't know what they're using now, but they kept the name. Good for them. I don't know. Pick your poison here. I can't get into this game. I just can't.
Why do we
Okay,
switch
so-
him? Why don't you switch Sheriff Clarke to the NIT tournament where he can pick Wisconsin?
Yeah, that's true. We can talk a little bit about that. There's maybe some more blue bloods in the NIT this year than in the actual tournament.
UAB.
So, Dad,
Patrick,
do you
you have-
like Patrick?
I'm all San Diego State because
There we
they
go.
put out Alabama, and maybe some arrests and prosecutions will happen now that these guys are out of the freaking tournament. I'm just saying.
They did say it, didn't they?
Yeah,
my-
and
The Brandon Miller thing.
it is. I don't know if it's an embarrassing loss because San Diego State is a good team, but for Alabama to lose in that fashion and basically just falling apart in the second half, totally panicking for a team that maybe we've talked about this now for a month, that there's really so much parity in college basketball this year. There's no clear number one. Nobody really believed Alabama was like the best team in the country. Even Houston had a lot of question marks, as we saw they fell to Miami as well. But definitely, if you're Alabama, you got to go back to the drawing board and really kind of rethink your approach to the game of basketball. Even Nick Saban kind of called out Nate Oates this week. So, you
thought that was
sacrifice
cool.
all that. What's that?
I thought that was cool what Nick Saban did. He suspended a player, for people who aren't aware of it, a player who was involved in a traffic incident, not a death like Brandon Miller, a traffic incident. He was driving 141 miles an hour.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys have ever driven that fast. I was once at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and they had a NASCAR event, and I got to ride in a NASCAR type automobile, and we got up to 150 miles an hour, and I was crapping in my pants, and I couldn't, as we're driving there, and you got to go around a couple laps in order to get up to that speed, and when you hit the turns, you actually feel the G-force pushing against you, and I thought, my God. So when I heard this guy was doing 140 miles an hour, that he didn't wrap that car around a tree or hit a building and kill himself is something sort of a miracle. But anyway, Nick Saban saved the integrity of the university by suspending the kid. And Nick Saban said, there is no such thing as being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that was the line used by the coach when he was referring to Brandon Miller involved in a homicide. Well, the kid was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I guess there still is some integrity at the University of Alabama, but I'm glad that they lost, because now we don't have to talk about Brandon Miller anymore till the NBA draft, because he's supposed to be a lottery pick.
That's right. 140 miles an hour is pretty fast. My hybrid gets up to about 47 miles an hour. So I couldn't imagine tacking on another 100 miles an hour there. I could barely get up to 50 on the highway. Dad, why don't you tell us why you love SDSU? I know you do. And then you can tell us about Rosie's.
Well, first of all, I agree with Sheriff Clarke on Lou Saban. I thought that was a class act, and I thought his comments were just epic. But screw NATO's basically, right? And that's one of the reasons there's poetic justice in this world. And Brandon Miller did not have a good game. But I want to get to the San Diego State game. Look, I've said this now in my columns every single week. In this tournament, when you get to this point of this tournament, coaching matters. Like, it doesn't really matter that much in a lot of games during the season, but it really matters now. And you saw how that Texas coach completely had a better game plan yesterday than Sean Miller at Xavier. These are two really good coaches. Brian Dutcher of San Diego State University, which I think is just a solid team here. You also got Greg McDermott at Creighton. This guy's been there a while. He's also very, very stellar. So, but the reason I like San Diego State in this game is experience. You know, one of the things about college basketball now you have to look at, it kind of ties into what Sheriff Clarke said earlier, is a lot of guys going early. So a lot of these teams, they recruit these big names and then they're one and done, two and done. A lot of these mid-majors, Sheriff, and not the big schools, they're getting people in there 4 years. So they have veteran leadership when it gets to these games. I mean, Fairleigh Dickinson my team was able to win that upset. All 5 guys were either 4 or 5 year seniors playing against in that opening game. Basically, frosh. Big difference. I think you're going to see the same thing here. I like the way San Diego State plays this defense. If they slow this thing down to that half court thing they had Alabama in, whatever that was. I mean, I never taught that when I coached basketball, because I had a completely different style, Paul Westhead style. But that thing, I mean, that was just a machete. It was like you were trying to go through a Panzer tank division. They're switching off of screen balls. I've never seen anything like that. I got to go with San Diego State. I'm getting 1.5. I can't believe it. I love San Diego State plus 1.5 here.
Tell us about Rosie's.
I tell you what, rosiesgaming.com. Go to rosiegaming.com in Virginia. They got all these locations. You're going to have the best time. They got the biggest payouts. They've given away $500 million in jackpots to this time. We got so many winners there. The food is great. The atmosphere is fantastic. It's all fun. And live racing comes to Colonial Downs on July 13th, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, post time 1:30. This is the most beautiful racetrack in America. And I've been to them all, or almost all of them, because I was in the business for a very long time. I love going on now. Here's the thing. Ann and I have the suite there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday throughout the racing season, July 13th with September 9th. Joe's off in college. They're playing in the minor leagues. We're empty nesters. We just got the cat. We got our suite there. And I tell you what, we're moving our entire studio there for the meet. We're going to have so much fun. Jack, you're going to be coming up because we're going to be doing racing Saturday. We're going to have so much fun. Go to rosiesgaming.com. That's rosiesgaming.com. They got a bunch of locations in Virginia. Great date night. You're going to have so much fun. And for you guys out there, take your significant other there, have fun, and you just might get lucky twice. rosiesgaming.com.
Thanks, Dad. So we're talking March Madness. We're talking the Elite Eight. And we've got another incredible matchup here in the East region. 2 teams that I don't think a lot of us had in the Elite Eight. Although, you know, a lot of people had Kansas State, but I'm not so sure about FAU. Who knows? So FAU beats Tennessee pretty handily. Physical game. We might want to talk about that physicality a little bit from Tennessee, some dirty plays. I think a lot of people saying basketball play. I don't know. Tennessee. Well, we can get into that. So FAU beats Tennessee. They slip by in a physical game. Then Kansas State puts up almost 100 points on Michigan State, who Tom Izzo said he didn't feel like his team played that well, and they only lost by 5. So now that gives us our Florida Atlantic versus Kansas State East Region Elite 8 matchup. Nate, I want to start with you. Just give us the odds, give us your feel for the game, and then we'll go around the horn.
So my feel for it's K-State -2 right now, and over under 144. So it's one of the higher totals or it's kind of a medium total for the tournament. Honestly, this game, I was one of those ones when we did the preview show. I was pretty skeptical of K-State. I wasn't sure if the talent was going to get there. They were picked like last in the Big 12, and now here they are in the Elite 8, looking, a Final Four shot, square in the face. My initial lean here is that I like Florida Atlantic. I haven't bet this game yet, but Florida Atlantic just looked so good against Tennessee. They didn't back down, and they just look so confident and loose. And I think that, they're a lot of fun to watch just because they're all such good shooters. They run 4 out, they shoot a bazillion threes, they have 1 7-footer in the middle. And it's just a really fun team to watch. I am still sort of not a huge K-State believer, but maybe I should be. But I feel like at some point, they're going to catch, a really hot shooting team. And I feel like FAU has been so hot so far. I just feel like this might just be a little bit of an upset. So my initial lean is FAU.
So Nate's Final Four so far is Creighton FAU.
Yeah, man.
What a tournament. Dad, what do you say here? FAU, Kansas State?
FAU keeps winning. They just keep winning. They just keep winning. They just keep winning winning basketball. They're making their shots. They're playing defense. Their coach there, he took that program over. They were in the tank about 3 years ago when he came in. They won like 5 games, kind of like the guy with Fairleigh Dickinson. He's turned the program around. KC, Kansas State, they're better than you think, but they just got off of overtime game, a lot of emotion, where basically Florida Atlantic dominated that game against a very tough Tennessee. But I want to get to the physicality of it, right? Because a lot of people whining about the Volunteers and they were mugging people. Hey, man up, okay? This is a man's game, right? I've always said basketball is the most physical game if you play it the right way, because you got no pads, no helmet, you got a pair of shorts on and a jock strap. That's all you got. Man up, right? If you're going to get beat up in the middle, maybe play volleyball or something, or badminton, right? That's how Tennessee plays. Come bring your A game. They're going to try to muscle you out of the middle. You're going to get banged up. Man up. Don't be whining about, Tennessee was so physical and look at this play on the replay and I should have been fouled here. This should have been a flagrant. Oh, man up and play the game. I think what Tennessee did is they toughened up this Florida Atlantic team. Hey, you're playing a Big 12 team, dude. You're going to get mugged. That's how they play there, right? Just look at Hudgens and West Virginia. They beat you up every game. This is how they play. You want to play here? You want to get to the Final Four? Stop whining about how tough Tennessee was and go man up and play in the middle and box somebody out. I think Tennessee actually upped Florida Atlantic's game. So this is tough for me because I think Kansas State is really better than we think they are. And the Big 12, as it turned out, is a pretty tough conference, very physical, but they already showed me they can beat that. So I'm going to go with Florida Atlantic +2.
There's physical basketball and then there's dirty basketball. And a lot of what Tennessee did, both in that Duke game and then against FAU, is they played borderline dirty basketball. I've been coaching basketball for a while, and regardless of what Dad says about physicality, there are rules to the game, and you can't just lower your shoulder or your forearm into somebody, especially when you're 7'2", just to knock them to the ground and then call it physical. That's not physical basketball. That's a foul. That's why there are fouls, because without them, the game is just rugby with a hoop. That's all it is. So, I've never been a Tennessee guy. Look, I went to Ole Miss, full disclosure. I got no love for the Tennessee Volunteers in any capacity. I cannot stand those programs. But even so, I love basketball. This was dirty. I mean, what Tennessee does is they play dirty basketball, and they got away with a lot of it. They did it in the Duke game, and they did it in the FAU game, and I'm glad they lost, and I'm glad they're out of the tournament because they're nonsense. Sheriff Clarke, any thoughts on Tennessee? Then I want to get to Patrick because he's down there in FAU territory with that rich tradition, as Sheriff Clarke's been talking about.
Yeah. Excuse me. Kansas State's going to win this game, so let's just get that out of the way.
3 seed wins.
As for the style of play, come on, John, that's not physical. What I watched that 7'1", 240-pound guy from Serbia, Plavsic, I think his name is. I might be mispronouncing that. That wouldn't be allowed on a college football field. Him throwing shoulders, those are called in college football. You get a flag for targeting, you get kicked out of the game, for heaven's sakes. That was unnecessary. I can't believe that after looking at the video of it, the referees go over to the monitor and they come back and say, no, that's a foul comment to the game. And I said, yeah, maybe in football, maybe in rugby, but it's not in basketball. Lowering the shoulder. Twice he got away with elbowing people in the face last week against Duke. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that game. That game's over. But, the fact that Duke wouldn't punch them back, which I was hoping that John Shire would get one of his bench players in the game and say, knock that guy on his ass.
Well, see, that's what they should have done. That's what I was saying.
But you know what? Duke plays basketball. Duke doesn't play basketball. They play basketball. So anyway, back to this game here. I'm reading some stuff here, and I had to chuckle. It says, this FAU run isn't a fluke. It says, this is a program with a winning pedigree. And I just
That's right.
I said, wait a minute. Who are they talking about here? I had to look. They're talking about FAU with a winning pedigree. See, they're trying to talk interest into this game when you make a statement like that, but Kansas State will win the game.
No, they won. I mean, they won like 34 games this year. FAU can win basketball games, but I know you're going to say, well, they play in a conference and you can just rack up the wins, blah, blah, blah. So, Patrick, I want to get to you because you're down there in Florida State or Fort Lauderdale, where FAU is. I just want to check the temperature in the town. How's everybody feeling? The rich tradition out there in Florida Atlantic, the Owls. How's it? How are you feeling as a Fort Lauderdale resident?
Complete transparency here. You guys have a different idea from physicality than I do. Because when I was in high school and we were in varsity sports and wrestling and football were out of season and they put us on a basketball court, I don't remember one time where it wasn't tied 0-0 at the end of the period and then we had to wipe the blood off the basketball court. So I don't know what you guys are talking about. So that's just normal to me. FAU, on the other hand, honestly, you could drive by it and nobody would even know it's there. It's really like a building where you have cheerleading competitions and wrestling tournaments, honestly. And the big pastime here in Boca Raton is the beach. So I didn't even know FAU had a basketball team. Honest to God.
Is it pandemonium there? Is it pandemonium?
Pandemonium because I think there's a sale at Nordstrom Rack across the street. But that's about it. Honestly, you don't even know it's there.
Yeah. The first time I was in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale, I was with someone and we drove past it and they went, that's Florida Atlantic. And then I looked by and it was gone. So
now, Jack, I'll tell you one thing. You can get some pretty physical altercations in PF Chang's across the street when they're double booked. Because those kids they take no crap from anybody when their reservation is double booked.
Look, I hear you. I'm a big PF Chang's fan. Nate's a big PF Chang's fan. And, we should defend our sense of physicality here. Nate can attest to this. We worked in bars in Reno for a long time. I mean,
You were
I
a
think we
bouncer,
understand.
Jack. You were a bouncer in one of the toughest bars in downtown Reno. Come on,
Yeah, but
man.
that doesn't mean we were playing basketball inside. I mean, like, yeah, like, okay. So sometimes when you're a bouncer at 3 a.m., you have to encourage somebody to leave in a way that might be construed as physical. They can attest to that. I've
like
certainly been in
dragging
those
them out,
situations.
like dragging them out and throwing them in the street.
I would say encouraging them to leave. Everybody who ever left that bar at 3 or 4 a.m. left on their own accord. Whether we talked them into it or not is beside the point. But we weren't playing a basketball game. Yeah, every once in a while they need convincing. Sometimes maybe I needed convincing that they could stay for like another 10 minutes. Sometimes I get a little
out their tab
impatient.
at least.
Yeah, Nate definitely has had a few conversations with me about like, hey man, I mean, you know, he's a friend, so maybe don't do that next time. But regardless, none of us were playing basketball, so we're talking about two different things here. So, Dad, we need to get to Ignite 45. Tell us about our incredible sponsor, Ignacio at Ignite 45. Then we'll get quickly to the Midwest and West regions.
If you own a small business, I got to tell you, you got to have an SEO strategy. You got to have a digital strategy. You got to have a website. You can't really operate today anymore without knowing what you're doing digitally. And the reason I love Iggy and his fiance at ignite45.com is they put together a whole strategy for you. They can redesign your website. They get you Google on the Google SEO strategy. But these two people are great people. They worked for a digital company. They made a combined income of $250,000. This is a true story. But they said the company was totally left-wing, totally woke. They couldn't stand it. So they got out of there and they decided with his wife pregnant, they decided, you know what, it's time. They quit both jobs, no insurance, anything. She's pregnant, to open up their own shop. Now that took guts. Now, what that means is if you hire them, right, they're going to have that same kind of fighting attitude for you also. So if you're a small business owner, check them out. Ignacio Falco and his wife, great people. Go to ignite45.com, ignite45.com, and get a little information there. They can revitalize your business online, ignite45.com. Put in promo code Godzilla. You're going to get $100 off your first order, no matter what it is. They'll do a complete audit like they did for me. That's how we got started. Ignite45.com. Check them out today.
And we want to thank Ignacio at Ignite 45 for making all of this possible, as well as all of our other incredible sponsors. Okay, we've got two more games we want to get to here. This one I'm very excited about because I've been on the Miami train for a long time here. Happy to see them upset the Houston Cougars. That, I believe that's our Midwest region here. Number 5 seed Miami versus number 2 seed Texas. Nate, give us the odds, then we'll go around the horn. We'll get to Sheriff Clarke and Dad's pick. I'm picking Miami. I can tell you that right now. No analysis needed.
All right. So the odds are Texas minus 4.5, over under 149. So the second highest total of these 4 games. So expect some high scoring fireworks. My initial read is that I kind of like Texas here. Miami just didn't do a bunch to impress me. Yes. I mean, they won. Yeah. But
except for beating the number 1 team in the country. Handily.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, other than that, not impressed.
I don't know. I mean, I lost money.
Blind squirrel, Nate. Blind squirrel, you know?
Yeah, he's like ridiculous because here's what happened. So all I ever do, he sends me his picks and his bets and I just tail it because we're best friends. And so I just want to be in solidarity with him all the time. And then yesterday I sent him at 8 a.m. Hey, Miami, baby, money line. Here we go. And then during the game, as I'm getting pumped up about Miami, he goes, oh, I took Houston minus 130 live. Like, I mean, he can't even play Miami with me just as a friend. It just was nuts. So let's just go to Dad because I'm tired of talking to him about this now. I just remembered that and it made me mad. Yeah, okay, Texas wins. Let's go to Sheriff Clarke actually first. Sheriff Clarke, you got your Texas Longhorn hat on here. What do you see here?
Yeah, take Texas. Take the you said a minus 4.5 for Texas. Take it. Look, Texas has been playing good basketball. I almost said great, but not great. That's too strong a word. Good basketball so far. You know, in the NCAA tournament, it's about guard play, and many of these teams have good backcourts. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know. Texas, some people think that Texas should have gotten the number 1 seed, and they didn't. So let's not, you know, quibble about seeds right now. But they're that good, is what I meant by people thought they should have got a 1 seed. I look forward to Texas going to the Final Four. I hope UConn gets there. Well, we'll get to that game in a little bit. But Texas has just been rock steady the entire tournament. Nobody's even given them a scare.
They really have. They've been incredible. I think this is going to be one of the best games of the Elite Eight here. Dad, what do you think? You like Texas?
Oh, I got to go with the Hurricanes here, and their old 73-year-old coach Jim Larrañaga hugging his players, kissing his players, dancing in the locker room. This team has got nothing to lose. He's got them so loose. This guy's 73 years old, and just to see him up there, they're all having fun, man. When you have fun, you win. And so I love Miami in this game. I think they're going to win the game outright. Look, you know, Texas had a great game plan last night. No question. I bet Xavier, no question. Sean Miller got out coached from almost the opening tip-off. I want to say one other thing on physicality, and then we'll move on. So I can just get this off my chest. When I coached, I had this thing at the end of games, we'd give people stars for doing whatever. I had 1 5-star, and the 5-star is the first, because I ran a run and gun offense. The first player that got a charge call on them going down the lane and put somebody on their backside and took and got the charge. Ball turns it over. I gave five stars. And I wanted that in the first quarter. You know why? Because the next time somebody's balling down the lane, right? That defensive player is going to think twice about standing there and not moving his feet. So they get happy feet because they don't want to get blasted. This is part of the game. I'm not saying that Tennessee was fair or not, but some coaches teach that you got to be tough because there's an intimidation factor. So I got a guy coming down on a fast break. You want to stand there and get run over, plant your feet? Fine. Next time, you better get the hell out of the way. That's kind of the mentality of it. But in this game, I love Miami because they're having fun. Fun wins games. Plus, they got a great coach. I just think it's going to be a great game. Go Hurricanes.
John,
here's something that I never.
John, shame on you. That's like Bounty Gate, for heaven's sake, that the New Orleans Saints got in trouble for the defensive coordinator said, whoever takes Favre out of the game, gets a
I want to take him out of the game. I just want to give me take the charge, man. Get the charge, put him on his backside, and go from there.
I'll just clear something up. I played basketball for him. None of this is true. I mean, he didn't give out stars. He never told us about like run over the guy taking a charge.
Ask Keith Stewart. He was a guy that always won the gold star. So
yeah,
Keith Stewart. You were not one of the you were not one of the guards going down there. So you weren't involved in that. You were a stretch forward. Big difference. Anyway, Hurricanes all the way.
Yeah, Keith Stewart was an incredible guard who got 5 stars because he could shoot threes, not because he was running over people in the paint. Anyway, another storyline that I think we have to talk about here just very quickly is the possibility of a South Florida national championship between FAU and Miami. That happens. I'll tell you what, Patrick's never getting into the PF Changs for a whole week. That reservation thing will be booked. So that could be really exciting. Patrick, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
If there were
money back,
if there were a UM versus FAU game, not one single student from either school would attend because they have absolutely no interest in anything that goes on as far as sports go. When I grew up in Coral Gables, Florida, I was running all over the University of Miami campus when I was in high school, skipping school, breaking into the pool, jumping off the 10-meter dive. I've never even heard of a student attend any games. I think that these
no tradition.
There's the university and then there's the sports business at the University of Miami. I don't know if any student, any active student has ever seen a game in their lives. Us.
Should be an incredible national championship.
That's
Let's
what
get to,
CBS is worried about.
yeah.
If they have it down here, the arena will be empty.
David Clarke, Sheriff Clarke's extremely worried about CBS's TV numbers. Let's get to our last game here. UConn Gonzaga. Gonzaga with an incredible win at the last second in the Sweet 16. UConn another statement win. Nate's pick to win it all. UConn still in the tournament. Nate, give us the odds here very quickly, and then we'll get a couple thoughts, get our picks in, and get you guys to War Room.
All right, we got UConn is the favorite -2.5 over Gonzaga, and the highest total on the board, which is over under 153. So high scoring game. I love UConn here. They just looked so good against Arkansas. I think that UConn is the best team in the tournament right now, as near as I can tell. I mean, they just look so complete. They were dominant defensively in their last game, and they just have no real weaknesses. I mean, down low, Adama Sanogo, Donovan Clingan, both 7 feet, both just super physical down low, getting a ton of rebounds, preventing people from scoring in the paint. They really stifled sort of everything Arkansas was trying to do down low, and they shoot the three really well. So there's no real weak, soft spots for UConn, and they haven't really been challenged. I mean, they just wiped the floor with Arkansas. I mean, it was the most sweat-free bet I've had this whole tournament. I mean, they got up early and they just destroyed them. So, and Musselman had a lot of nice things to say about them afterwards, just being they were just really good. They might be the best team we've played this year. So
you always say that after a loss. Coach always says that we lost to a good team.
I mean,
yeah, what are they going to say? Hey, they really suck, but we suck more. I
think so. I think some coaches do that. They're like, "Oh, we were just terrible." That's what Izzo said.
That's what Izzo said.
Yeah, Izzo was
exactly
we didn't play good.
Yeah, he
See,
was
that's why
I don't
like. That's why I don't like Kansas State because Izzo said, "Hey, they really suck. We suck worse." I mean, I'm not gonna bet Kansas State after Izzo said that.
Well, he didn't exactly say that, but okay.
It's a paraphrase.
Nate likes UConn. Sheriff Clarke, you going with the Huskies here? You're not a Big East guy.
No, my head says UConn, my heart says Gonzaga. That was one of the outstanding games of the tournament when they played UCLA the other night. That was one of those nail biters. They're down by 13 at half, Gonzaga, and then UCLA, the wheels came off. They went 12 minutes without a point. That's more than a quarter of the game without a point, for heaven's sakes. But I think that game emotionally and physically is going to be too much for Gonzaga to recover from, but I'm pulling for Gonzaga. And after this, if Gonzaga wins, I will be going online to order my Gonzaga Bulldogs baseball cap that I'll wear next week.
Love it. Dad, why don't you give us your UConn Gonzaga take, and then you can take us to the War Room.
It's got to be Gonzaga Bulldogs, baby, after that game, after that comeback, down by 13.5 and just hanging in there and then almost getting beat at the end and then hitting that off balance three. I mean, the whole thing, it's magical. You just got to believe here. You just got to believe they got something going on in Gonzaga. They've been here before. It's a veteran team, taking nothing away from UConn. But Jack, you're a Big East fan. It could have been Rutgers, right? It could have been Rutgers.
Rutgers is in the Big Ten.
Whatever.
No,
they're in New Jersey. They're still
the
East. It could have been Rutgers.
They're in a Power Five.
Who's in the Big East? Who's in the Big East? Drexel? What Monmouth College?
Creighton and UConn, 2 Elite 8 teams.
Lafayette? Are they Lehigh?
Creighton.
Who's it? He's in the Big East. Come on, man. You got to go with the Bulldogs here. That comeback, I mean, that was unbelievable. And just they're poised and they're tough and they're a veteran team. And look, I'm not taking anything away from the Huskies. On paper, they look like the better team. And to what Sheriff Clarke said, they went 12 minutes without scoring a basket. That's like a quarter of the game. Like, how do you possibly win? So on paper, UConn, all the wise guys are going to bet the Huskies, right? But this is why the casinos are big and rich, and we don't have any money betting this stuff because they get it all. So I'm going to go counter trend here. I'm going to go counter wise guy money. I'm going with Gonzaga, and I'm getting 2.5. Maybe it's a 2-point game in the end. Somebody misses a foul shot or something. I'm going to take Gonzaga and 2.5 and have some fun. This is going to be a fun game. Get a beer, sit down, have fun. This is a fun game. All these are fun games, especially the Miami game. That's fun too. It's all fun. Fun's my middle name.
I thought it was Patience.
Fun and patience.
John Fun Patience Fredericks.
It was an hour ago. He said it was Patient.
Oh God, too funny. Okay,
just
we
end the
got to
show.
go. We got to end this thing. I had so much fun today, guys. Thank you all for doing this, and we'll see you next week again. Forget those other guys. My picks are Gonzaga plus 2.5, FAU plus 2, Miami plus 4.5, and San Diego State plus 1.5. I'm taking all the doggies, baby. It's a dog day afternoon.
Bevo. Go
Let's
Bevo.
Let's go.
Hook 'em horns.
Let's go to some really serious business now. What a contrast between our show. Next up, Steve Bannon. You're in the war room. We'll see you next week. I'll see you Monday at 6.